I got a Patreon request from Franklin to review the Japanese film The Burmese Harp. I admit that classic Japanese cinema is something I've often wanted to explore more of. I've seen some Akira Kurosawa films, a few Yasujiro Ozu films, some entries in the Godzilla franchise, as well as a few other movies here and there like Woman in the Dunes. However, it's still an area I've probably only scratched the surface of, so I was happy to get this request, and I definitely found a lot to appreciate here. Released in 1956, it's basically a story told in 3 parts, focusing on Japanese soldiers dealing with the end of World War II and what to do now that they've lost. Each segment tackles a different aspect of the period just after the surrender, what happens to the characters. It did not take long to draw me into the stories. We see it from the perspective of the Japanese. You might think the film would try to depict them in a sympathetic light, even though the Japanese army did a lot of terrible things during the war, including the film's setting in Burma. However, the film instead shows how different soldiers reacted to the end of the war and having to come back from that. The first section of the movie even depicts a platoon who refuses to accept that the war is over and will stubbornly continue to fight for Japan. This reflects something not uncommon in wartime, where one side is obviously lost but cannot accept it, even as they are ordered to turn in their weapons and cease fighting. The second section becomes about a soldier named Mitsushima who has taken on the role of a Buddhist monk, and we see him traveling around Burma and burying the dead. Most of this portion is done almost entirely without dialogue, and I'm often a sucker for when movies use primarily the visuals to tell the story. I was completely riveted as he wandered around and saw the aftermath of what the Japanese campaign in Burma resulted in. Somehow, despite the mostly lack of dialogue, we see how this changes him, and it's all done subtly through the visuals and the shots of the landscape. The third and final section of the Burmese Harp involves the Japanese soldiers trying to locate their friend and find out what happened to him. We see their determination to find him and worry whether he will return to Japan or not. Their development is well handled, and I particularly like the friendship they strike up with an old woman who helps them try to find Mitsushima and convince him to come back. A lot of scenes with the soldiers involve them sitting around and thinking about the situation, both before they find out the war's over and when they're in the prison of war camp. This is something under different direction could have come across as dull, but the director, Kon Ichikawa, made it compelling as he develops an interest in the soldiers. A major component of the Burmese Harp comes from the music, including the songs performed by the Japanese soldiers as well as the British Army. It's through hearing the British sing that they find out the outcome of the war, and there's several other scenes where the Japanese soldiers sing. And this does fit narratively within the film, along with the music performed by Mitsushima on the titular harp. There's also the score composed by Akira Ifukube, who is most well known for composing the music for the original Godzilla, and he provides fitting compositions for the film. The cinematography is also impressive, with not just the shots of the forest and other locations, but the way the film uses close-ups of feet as the characters walk through Burma. Although The Burmese Harp was filmed in Japan, not Burma, Ichikawa uses movie magic to give off that impression. He seems to show particular interest in the Buddhist religion and how it's practiced there, with a lot of shots of statues, and we also see how Mitsushima becomes more ingrained in that culture and practices. The Burmese Harp has primarily been categorized as an anti-war film, and Francis Ford Coppola even specifically cited it as anti-war due to its lack of violence compared to how he himself depicted war in Apocalypse Now. The film depicts death as a result of war and sends the message of how much better the world would be if everyone put down their weapons and just appreciated the beauty of life, whether it's music or nature. What progress is made when we keep fighting and killing each other. The Burmese Harp was released only 11 years after the end of World War II, so I was looking at it from that perspective and the closeness of the event. But after Japan moved away from the system that governed the country during the war and adopted their current constitution in 1947, it eventually became a respected democratic country again, and one with a significant economy and driving force in technological innovation. If Japan remained as stubborn as the captain and the other soldiers depicted hiding in a cave at the beginning of the film, and not accepted the defeat, the country would have probably remained stagnant. I think that ties into one of the main messages of the Burmese Harp. The soldiers in the cave ultimately die because they don't accept their loss in war. Meanwhile, Mitsushima finds a new purpose in life, and the soldiers that do accept the war is over can go home to their families and probably continue to have normal lives, while they will also have to wrestle with whatever harmful actions they did in Burma during the war. Ultimately, I felt the Burmese Harp was a reflective and thoughtful piece of cinema that took an interesting approach in exploring war and its aftermath. Now, if you've seen the film, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for the request, Franklin.